All right, let's dive into D&D, specifically getting ready for our first campaign. And I know there's a lot to unpack, so we're going right to the source, the Player's Handbook, the premium edition.
That's the one. It's the player's go-to guide for, well, creating a character and, navigating this whole world.
Makes sense. The Dungeon Master has their own, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Totally different set of tools and information. Keeps things interesting, right?
Right. So I got to admit, I always kind of thought D&D was, roll the dice, slay a dragon, repeat. But I'm getting the sense there's a lot more to it. Yeah. What exactly is Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, AD&D for short, all about?
You're not wrong about the dragons. But yeah, it's way more than that. It's really a shared storytelling experience. Think about it like this. You and your friends are sitting around a table, each of you brings a character to life, and as you play, the story just unfolds organically.
Interesting. So there's no, set winner?
Nope. No single winner. Even death isn't always the end. I mean, your character can be resurrected or, reincarnated. It's really open-ended.
That's pretty cool. So where do you even begin with creating a character?
Well, the Player's Handbook lays out all these different classes. You've got your clerics, your fighters, magic users, thieves, and monks. Each one's got its own set of abilities, and it really dictates how you'll play the game.
So if I wanted to, fling spells, I'd go for the magic user. I always wondered, though, is it all about book smarts, or do you have to have some sort of magical talent?
It's a bit of both, honestly. The Player's Handbook talks about intelligence being super important for magic users. It determines how many spells they can learn. But there's also this idea of a natural aptitude for magic. There's this spark, know?
Right. So it's not just hitting the books. Got to have that magical touch. What about race?
Yeah.
Human, elf, dwarf. Is that just for flavor, or does it actually affect things?
Oh, race matters big time. It comes with its own set of abilities and, limitations, too.
So, what?
Well, for example, elves. They move silently. Perfect for ambushing, right? Gives them an edge in dungeons. Plus, they're harder to charm, which is interesting.
So my choice of race can actually change how I play the game. Huh. So race and class. Check. What else?
Well, next you get to figure out your ability scores. Strength, dexterity, constitution, the whole list. These scores are going to affect everything, like how much you can lift or how persuasive you are even.
Okay, so if I want to be this super persuasive leader, I need a high charisma, right?
You got it. High charisma means you can attract more followers and, influences how other characters react to you. Oh, yeah. And there's this cool thing called multi-classing. Half-elves and half-orcs can actually combine two classes, split their experience points, but get a mix of skills.
Whoa. So, a half-orc could be a warrior and a thief. That sounds kind of awesome. Yeah. Tell me more about these racial abilities, though. What kind of cool things can they do?
Oh, tons of things. Gnomes, for example, they have infravision. They can see in the dark. Plus, they're amazing miners. They can just tell where there's ore nearby.
Like a built-in metal detector. Nice.
Okay.
What about halflings?
Oh, halflings, they're amazing at stealth. And get this, they have this incredible sense of direction, even underground. And they get bonuses with ranged weapons, like slings.
So much detail. I'm already picturing my halfling thief sneaking through the shadows and everything. But eventually you're going to run into danger. So how does combat actually work?
Now that's where things get exciting. You've got your armor class, which basically tells you how hard you are to hit. And, hit points, that's your life force.
So the harder you are to hit, the luckier someone has to be to actually land a blow.
Yeah, something like that. There's also something called initiative, which it determines the order of actions in combat. So a fast rogue might get to act before, let's say, a big, slow ogre can even swing their club.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these details actually matter. But before we get lost in a dungeon, tell me a little bit about the magic, the spells. What kind of things can, clerics and magic users do?
Well, they both have their own unique spells, but they got to memorize them first, so it's strategic,
Oh.
Clerics, they're all about healing and protection. Imagine your party's been cursed. A cleric could cast Remove Curse, problem solved.
Wow, like a magical cure-all. What about magic users?
Oh, they've got some incredible spells. I mean, they can cast Lightning Bolt, just unleash this surge of electrical energy, or even invisibility to disappear. Imagine the possibilities.
That's some powerful stuff.
Oh, and there's Levitate. They can defy gravity or fly, which, well, I think that one's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, fly. Got it. Anything else?
Monster summoning. They can call forth creatures to fight with them.
That is so cool. I had no idea spellcasting was so complex.
Oh, and we haven't even talked about illusionists. They use spells like phantasmal force to trick people or improved invisibility to become even harder to see.
Whoa, so they can make you see things that aren't even there.
Exactly. Deception and trickery at its finest.
This is a lot to take in.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground already.
My brain is definitely buzzing with all these possibilities. There's so much depth to D&D, so many possibilities. It's amazing how much detail there is, in every part of the game.
Yeah, and it all comes together to make this really dynamic experience. It's not just rolling dice. You got to make decisions, strategic decisions that shape how the story goes.
You mentioned before that the Dungeon Master, they've got their own guide. What kind of stuff do they know that we don't?
Oh, the Dungeon Master's Guide. That's their secret weapon. It's got everything they need to build the world, design encounters that'll challenge the players, guide the whole narrative. They've got details about monsters, traps, treasure, all that good stuff.
But they're like the director and we're the actors.
Exactly. They set the stage and we react, make choices, drive the action forward.
It's a real team effort then.
Yes.
But going back to the player's handbook for a second, you mentioned that the ability scores have specific examples, like in the game. What did you mean by that?
Oh, yeah. So take strength, for instance. It directly affects how much you can lift or, your physical capabilities. Let's say you're trying to bend some iron bars. The Dungeon Master might say, okay, make a strength check. So you roll a die, add your strength modifier, and if you hit the target number, bam, you bend those bars.
So a higher strength means I'm more likely to break out of a jail cell or something.
You got it. Strength's not just a number. It actually matters in the game world.
That's cool. What about the other scores? How do they actually work in the game?
Well, we talked about intelligence for magic users. It determines how many spells they can learn. But it also comes up when, you're deciphering ancient runes or trying to figure out a riddle or even identify a magic item.
So a smart wizard isn't just good at spells. They're good at solving puzzles, too.
Exactly. And then there's charisma. That's all about how you interact with other characters. If you have high charisma, you might be able to, persuade a guard or convince a merchant to give you a better deal.
So if I want my character to be, like, a king or queen someday, I need them to be really charming.
That's not a bad strategy. Charisma can be just as powerful as any weapon.
It's amazing how all this stuff connects back to how you actually play the game. We talked about combat before, but I'm still a bit confused about those attack matrices. How do those work?
Sure. So basically, when you attack someone, it's not just about luck. The attack matrix takes into account your character's skill with their weapon and their opponent's defenses.
So a skilled fighter with a good weapon has a better chance of hitting someone who's heavily armored.
Right. It's all calculated out. Makes combat more strategic.
So it's not just random chance. Makes sense. What about damage? How's that determined?
Each weapon has a specific die roll. So a sword might do 1d8 damage. You roll an 8-sided die. And of course, a better weapon will use a biddle die. Plus, your strength score can add to the damage.
So a strong character with a big axe could do a ton of damage. Makes sense. But going back to magic for a minute, what are some other cool spells?
Well, let's talk about clerics again. They can cast control weather, like calm a stormy sea if your party needs to sail somewhere. Or if someone dies, they can cast reincarnate, brings them back to life, but in a new form.
Whoa, a new form, like a different race even.
It's a powerful spell, but yeah, you never know what you're going to get.
That's wild. What about magic users? Anything else mind-blowing they can do?
Oh, tons. Telekinesis, they can move things with their minds, or dimension door, basically teleport themselves, across vast distances.
Now that's what I call magic.
Oh, they can also use polymorph other, turn an enemy into something harmless. Or fireball, which is just a massive explosion.
Magic users are definitely powerful. But illusionists, what about them?
Illusionists are tricky. They've got shadow magic. They can create illusions that can even cause damage. Imagine a shadow version of themselves attacking you. And their improved invisibility makes them super hard to spot. They can sneak around, eavesdrop, even plant fake evidence, like frame someone.
Sounds like illusionists are great spies.
Definitely. Each spell adds a whole new level of strategy to the game. And these are just a few examples. There are so many spells in the player's handbook.
My head's spinning just thinking about it.
It is a lot to take in.
I'm starting to see why people love D&D so much, though. It's more than a game. It's like a world where, anything's possible.
That's what makes it so great. The only limit is your imagination.
So we've covered, creating a character, fighting, even spellcasting. But what's it actually like to play? When you sit down with your friends, what happens?
Okay, so picture this. You're in this, like, dimly lit tavern, smells like ale and roasted meat, and you and your friends are gathered around this table. Everyone's in character, and the dungeon master starts setting the scene. They describe this shadowy figure walks up to your table and starts whispering about a lost artifact hidden in some forgotten temple.
Oh, wow, that's cool. But then what? Do you just do what the dungeon master says?
That's where it gets fun. You get to react, ask questions, make decisions. Like, maybe you're a brave warrior. They jump at the chance to go find this artifact.
Right.
Or maybe the rogue wants to, check out the stranger, see if they're legit.
Makes sense.
Or your wizard, they might start looking through their books, trying to find info about this artifact. Every choice you make, it changes the story.
So it's like you're writing the story together.
Exactly. It's a collaboration. The dungeon master's kind of like the narrator, but it's the players who really make the story happen.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Is it all about fighting monsters and finding treasure, though?
There's definitely a lot of that, but it's not the only thing. You might have to, bargain with a merchant, solve riddles, or even, navigate a tricky social situation.
The one minute you're fighting an ogre, the next you're, trying to convince a king to help you?
Yeah. It can be anything you can imagine. The player's handbook just lays the foundation. It's up to you and the dungeon master to really bring it all to life.
Okay, I'm getting really excited to play now. But let's say I'm in the middle of a dungeon. Things are getting tough. What advice would you give a first-time player?
First thing, remember you're part of a team. Don't be afraid to ask for help from your friends or the dungeon master even. Talk to each other, come up with a plan, support each other.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
You got it. And sometimes the smartest thing you can do is run away. If things are looking bad, live to fight another day, right?
Don't be a hero.
Exactly. Pick your battles. Another thing, pay attention. Dungeons are dangerous places. There might be traps, hidden doors, all sorts of things. The dungeon master might describe, a crumbling wall or a weird pool of water. Those are clues.
So it's like a big puzzle. You have to figure out what's important.
Exactly. And you've got tools to help you. The player's handbook has rules for, finding and disarming traps. And think about your character's abilities. That halfling sense of direction, that could come in handy.
Yeah, it could. Any other advice?
Be ready for anything. You got to think on your feet, change your plans. Most importantly, have fun. Let your imagination go wild, enjoy playing with your friends, and just create some amazing stories.
This has been awesome. I feel way more prepared to play now. What's the one thing you want to leave our listeners with?
The Player's Handbook, it's just the start. The real magic of D&D, it's the experience. Playing with your friends, creating stories together, making memories. So gather your group, get those dice rolling, and get ready for an adventure.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. To all our listeners out there, may the dice be ever in your favor.